Harris coming out to hawk a book when she hasn't said anything since she left office about the ongoing genocide is quite something. This video will be a lot of criticism of Kamala Harris, so if you're a Kamala stan or blue MAGA, you might just want to skip now. The Democratic Party are the biggest fucking grifters, filled with consultants who are even bigger grifters than they are. It was like 5 seconds after the election was over before all of them came into all of our texts and started begging us for money. This was the most accurate tweet I saw on Twitter yesterday. Yeah, first it was Hillary Clinton writing a book about why it wasn't her fault that she lost, and now we have Kamala Harris coming out with her new book called 107 Days, which we're obviously not sure what's in the book, but you can pre-order it now on Amazon, guys, don't worry. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that it's a lot of not taking accountability, just like Hillary Clinton. First of all, let's get the 107 days out of the way. Our elections are insane. We have a permanent grifting class of consultants that make billions of dollars, as well as the corporations that run the ads, off of our election industrial complex. In most countries, they run elections on a way shorter time frame. 107 days is actually not that crazy. It would be a lot better for us as a country if we didn't have our elections drawn out as long as they are. Because if you think about it, we're never not in an election cycle. We're always in an election cycle. As soon as the presidential election is over, guess what we saw the Democrats doing? Immediately. Because as soon as the presidential election was over, guess what we saw the Democrats start to do? Ask for money for the midterms. All they're doing is talking about the midterms. And then after the midterms, they're going to immediately start talking about 2028. It's a cycle from hell. Now, people are making a big deal that she says she's not going to run for California governor. She's only not running because she wants to run again in 2028. Making her first public appearance, though, to be hawking a book and talking about how you can pre-order it really is peak Democrat. Nothing about the genocide in Gaza, nothing about the starvation. Even Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama put out statements recently pretending to give a shit about the starvation in Gaza. She didn't say shit. But I'm going to engage in a little bit of speculation since we don't know what's in this book yet. Because if I know anything about the Democratic Party, they love to never take accountability. There were not only a lot of things that the Democratic Party as a whole botched this election cycle, but things that Kamala Harris personally botched herself. And I know Blue MAGA and the Kamala stands, you want to infantilize her, you want to make her a little baby that's not responsible for any of her own actions, but she is, and she also contributed to this. I actually heard one of the Blue MAGA people, who is definitely going to be appearing in that accountability archive, say as she was attacking Maya in a video that Kamala Harris had no power. Yeah, you heard that right. She said, while attacking Maya, a random 22-year-old Palestinian who was advocating for her family not to be slaughtered, she was blaming her personally for Kamala Harris's election loss, and then in the same video seriously turned around and said, what does she want Kamala Harris to do? She had no power as the vice president. I'm going to go through the list of reasons why I think she lost, and I don't think it's one thing. I think it's many contributing factors. I do think that her being a black woman made it harder. It made it more of an uphill battle than it otherwise would have been if she wasn't a black woman, if she wasn't a mixed woman, if she wasn't a woman. But was that the main reason why she lost? No, I don't even think it was in the top 5. So let's get into the list. And number 1, I think, is probably the thing that contributed to her loss the most. She would not separate herself from Joe Biden. She refused to separate herself from the anchor around her foot, which was Joe Biden. Reporting came out in a book after this that Joe Biden said to her before she went on the debate stage, no daylight between us, kid, on anything. And she agreed to that, which is wild. Joe Biden was insanely unpopular toward the end. His polling was in the trash. He was never once beating Trump. So for her to agree to not create any separation between her and Biden, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Remember, she went on The View, and when they said, would you do anything different than Biden? She said no. Who advised that? Like, you saw the polling internally that Biden was getting his ass handed to him. So why wouldn't you pivot to a totally different strategy if you were the Kamala Harris campaign? You know why? Because those grifter consultants get paid no matter what. It doesn't matter if a Democrat loses or wins. They're still going to get their fucking check. Which is to the consultant and think tank industrial fucking complex in DC. A bunch of rich, scammy, out of touch fucking rich people that get paid millions of dollars worth of contracts from the Democratic Party to lose. They are totally disconnected from real life and what regular people want and what the base wants. They're all fucking DC brain people. And how you know the Democrats are not serious about winning in the future is that no one's been fired. Why hasn't anybody been fired? Why hasn't anybody at the DNC been fired? The Democratic Party's approval rating is at 21%. How is your hair not on fire? How is everyone not like, oh my gosh, 21%, this is the worst we've seen in decades, we gotta do something? Why haven't all of these groups that got paid handsomely been fired? Why are all the same hacks still going on TV and giving advice on how the Democrats should win? I'm talking about the pollsters and the analysts and the professional Democratic apparatchiks that get paid to go pontificate about this stuff. You lost. Why are you guys still employed? Why am I seeing Rahm Emanuel anywhere? Why am I seeing loser ex-Senate Democrats like John Tester and Claire McCaskill give advice on how Democrats can win when they both lost? And people are already talking about how she's going to run again in 2028. You lost. Stop with the fucking reruns. Even aside from the rerun factor that she already lost, you participated in genocide. I've got no fucking interest in you being president, bro. In fact, I don't even know why we're sitting here talking about her future political career. She should be tried for war crimes. That's also how you know that they're not fucking serious. In a regular, because they love to compare shit to corporations and businesses. In a regular business or a corporation, if you fuck up that bad, you light $2 billion on fire, heads are going to be rolling. Lots of people are going to get fired. Who's been fired in Democratic leadership? Who's been fired in Democratic politics? Who's been fired at the DNC? Who of the consultants have been told, we're never working with you again? We're never working with any of your organizations again. The think tanks, we're never working with you. Anybody? Anybody? No. It's going to be more failing up, more cowbell. She probably won't acknowledge the role the consultant grifters played in her losing. The fact that they gave her terrible advice and said things like, don't talk too much about the economy, don't attack billionaires too much, keep Tim Walz in the basement. They blew almost $2 billion on this campaign. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around that, how much money they fucking wasted in 107 days. Like, it's actually criminal. Where the fuck did all that money go? So not separating herself from Joe Biden, that was probably the biggest thing. And let's not forget, a lot of that had to do with the economy. The economy, poll after poll since the election has shown that that was the number one thing people were voting on. She would not separate herself from him even on the economy. Which brings me to number 3. She was an active part in the Gaza genocide. The number 2. And before you try to absolve her and go, oh, she was only the vice president, she refused to separate herself from him on this issue. She had so many opportunities to break with him on this, and she chose not to. A lot of people try to let her off the hook for this and go, oh, she was only the vice president. Really? Because it was Biden himself that said, when he would try to defend her credibility, he would say, I make no decisions without her. She is just as involved in my policy. She's the last person in the room. People were literally begging her to move on the Gaza policy. I was literally begging her campaign to move on the Gaza policy. She knew how unpopular it was. She knew it. It also came out after the election that her campaign would go through messages and comments from people who were asking her to speak out about the genocide and say that she would change her policy, and they were blocking them and removing their comments and removing them from their mailing list. So she knew it was an active decision not to move away from Biden's genocidal policy. There was also a lot of reporting that has since come out after the election that has confirmed that her campaign refusing to move away from Biden on the genocide cost her a lot of votes. A lot of people stayed home. And she was given so many opportunities. Like, the fact, when you think about it, that a Palestinian lawmaker was begging to be let on stage to have a voice at the DNC so she could endorse her, and her campaign told them to kick fucking rocks. Instead of letting a Palestinian speak at the DNC and give them a voice, they saved the DNC stage for Republicans and Border Patrol, which leads to number 4, the cozying up to the right wing and Liz Cheney. I don't know why you thought that was a good idea. Telling people that you were going to put a Republican in your cabinet, campaigning with Liz Cheney, having Border Patrol agents speak at the DNC, and fucking right-wingers throwing trans people under the bus, being consulted by Mark Cuban and other billionaires. One of her main advisors was a lobbyist for Uber. She moved significantly to the right on immigration, bragging about how lethal our military is and how she really wanted them to pass that insane draconian border bill, but, Trump wouldn't let them. There were so many disastrous campaign decisions, like I don't even know where to start, like sending Bill Clinton to Dearborn, Michigan to college Judea and Samaria and lecture Palestinians. She refused personally to meet with the uncommitted movement, a movement that was literally begging her to hear them out so that they could get to a place where they could vote for her. She also told them to kick rocks because she thought she didn't need them. She thought, like all fucking Democrats think every election cycle, that they're gonna grab right-wing Republican white women who never fucking vote for them anyway. Like, it's actually insane that they still do this. Instead of ever trying to run to appeal to their own base or their own voters, they always kick their voters in the fucking face and then run to the right trying to get white suburban moms or whatever the fuck who never vote for them anyway to vote for them because they think it's going to be different this time. And like I've said many times, the reason why they never run to appeal to their base is because they fucking hate their base. A lot of Democratic shills and hacks actually came out after the election and said, yeah, they should be in a different party. Like, we don't like them. Why do you think it is that after Zohra Mamdani won, all the major fucking Democrats in New York State refuse to endorse him? Because they hate him. Because they hate his politics. They hate the Democratic base. They'll actually tell you, you should be in a different party. They don't want you. They want your vote, but they want you to shut the fuck up and just do exactly what they say. They're not running to offer you shit. What was she running to offer? All of her plans were incredibly vague or incredibly typically Democrat. Like, oh, guys, I know there's a massive housing crisis, and you know what I'm gonna do about that? Instead of banning private equity from continuing to destroy the housing market, she's all, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you a credit. I'm gonna give you like a $10,000 credit so that you can go through a bunch of horrible bureaucratic paperwork to try to get a house that you can't afford because it's like $500,000 no matter where you go in the country. And I'll give you a rebate, a tax credit for like $10K that you can submit and maybe get a refund for. They're always doing this shit. This was a big fucking problem in Biden's administration overall. People want real big change. People want massive change. And the reason why our pendulum in our politics keep going back and forth like this is because people keep attempting to vote for massive change. And then they don't get it, and then they get mad and they try to vote again, and we keep going back and forth. Because one of the mistakes that Biden made, and people warned about this, we warned about it at the time that he broke up the Inflation Reduction Act bill and took all the provisions out of it that would help working class people. We warned at the time this is going to backfire. We warned at the time after he ran in Georgia and promised those $2,000 checks and then immediately backtracked on his promise when he got elected. We said, this is going to backfire. And him doing the typical neoliberal corporate bullshit of nibbling around the edges and giving a little bit here and a little bit there and then lying about how big the checks were going to be while allowing the child tax credit, which was massively successful, to expire, and then taking all the provisions that would help working class people out of the IRA were going to backfire. It was going to and that's exactly what happened because people felt it. All of the help that people were getting during the pandemic unemployment, the healthcare expansions, he allowed them to expire. He allowed all of it. So working class people and regular people were left to fucking hang out to dry. He did nothing to confront the insane corporate gouging that was driving so much of the inflation. Not shit. And the bills that he passed that had good provisions in them were all things that were not going to affect people immediately, and some of them not for years. So people weren't feeling it. People tried to say that at the time, and what did he say? Nothing. They sent out their fucking press hacks and tried to gaslight people and be like, no, the economy's great. The economy's great. Joe Biden is young and healthy and dynamic. Which brings me to point 5, which is they refuse to have a primary. They refuse to have a primary. Then they lied about saying that they refused to have a primary and then gaslit everybody and said, no, Joe Biden's in great health. He's amazing. Defended the fact that they weren't allowing to have a primary and then tried to retcon that and lie and say, yeah, we did. Joe Biden won. And then after he finally stepped down, when it was so clear to everybody that this car was driving into a ditch, they anointed Kamala Harris and they all said that it was her turn. And if you wanted to have a primary, well, you were racist and sexist and getting in the way of a black woman. The Democratic Party is an empty shell. It's a husk. It's a jobs program for senior citizens who refuse to leave office until they die. They don't offer anything. They don't fight for anything. They don't want to fight for their base. They don't even want the progressives and the left in their fucking party, except for when it comes to give their votes. And their entitlement is legendary. The Democratic Party loves to run on democracy being so important, but they don't actually believe it. That's the reason why the Democratic Party hasn't had a real primary since 2008. It's the reason why Zohran Mamdani can win by a lot, including all the congressional districts of the people that still won't endorse him. The party has spent more time going after Zohran than they have after Trump. It's vote blue no matter who, unless a progressive wins, even if he had a mandate. Then all of a sudden the party doesn't mind third-party independent runs or sex pass. The reason why the whole "we're running to save democracy" thing didn't resonate with people is because people see how full of shit they are. You guys are not pro-democracy. You're less democratic within the ranks of your own party than the Republicans. They are so anti-democratic and anti-progressive that when David Hogg was elected to be one of the co-chairs, because he said, hey, maybe we should do some self-reflection and get some new people in here, they kicked him out. So not only are they refusing to do any introspection, self-reflection, autopsy about where they fucked up, when somebody actually came along and was like, hey, maybe we should look at how we lost so epically and try to change it, they were like, he's got to go. They love, I guess this is 6, maybe this is 0.6, they are the most entitled motherfuckers you've ever seen. They expect that you should give them money. They expect that you should canvass for them. I heard Zohran Mamdani say it on Morning Blow, and it was pretty accurate. He said, Democrats spend way too much time telling people what they should think instead of listening to them. They're never beating the elitist allegations, okay? They don't listen to people. They do talk at people. They do talk down to people. And they don't even promise you shit. They're running on democracy, but then they wouldn't even allow a fucking primary. They run on democracy, and then Zohran Mamdani wins, and the Democrats, they're like, oh, did we say democracy? About that. We didn't mean that. Did you know that only 8% of Democratic voters support the Israeli regime? Only 8%. And yet the party refuses to move on it. The party keeps voting for funding for the Israeli regime. The party refuses to break with them because they have no respect for you. They treat it like you owe them. Even though that's not how this shit works. They have conditioned Democratic voters for you guys to work for them instead of them working for you. They have conditioned you to work for fucking free. You get up here and you defend them and you smear people and shame people for not wanting to vote for this loser fucking party, this corporate fucking neoliberal empty shell of a party who is offering nothing to the people. All they do is threaten you with the few rights that you have. If you don't elect us, democracy's dead, despite the fact that we sue to get third parties off the ballot, and despite the fact that we won't endorse a progressive when they actually win, and we'll undermine democracy when that actually happens, and we won't have a primary. But democracy's dead if you don't elect us, and if you don't elect us, Trump is gonna win. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? It's all threats. Like, there is no affirmative case that they're making. They're never offering anything except for threats. And instead of Democratic voters demanding better and saying, we're not doing this shit anymore, too many are still like, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. What would you like us to do? Would you like us to be your attack dogs to attack people who aren't happy with you and are asking you to move? Politicians are supposed to be public servants. They are supposed to run to represent you, not the other way around. And if they're not running on an affirmative case to earn your vote, then they don't deserve it. And when it comes down to it, that is why she lost. She refused to make herself available for press. She refused to go on podcasts. She refused to listen to the people that were begging her to talk about Palestine and to move on her position. She refused to move away from the billionaire and the consultant class. And she refused to move away from Joe Biden. Despite all the PR around Brat Summer and Joy, the campaign was based on fear. It was based on a threat. We're not going to offer you shit. You're gonna vote for us or else. And they thought it would work because it usually does. but it didn't work this time. If Kamala Harris is like all the other Democratic leaders in the party, my guess is going to be she didn't actually learn any of those lessons and won't take accountability for her loss. And blue MAGA Democrats and liberals can cope and they can seethe and they can do all the PR for her for free. But I'm not interested in hearing advice from people who just lost a fucking election. Democrats love to give advice on what we should do right after they just had their asses handed to them. And I'm certainly not interested in hearing advice from people who have made the party what it is. This party is trash. It's a fucking disaster. It should be burned to the ground. And something else should be created in its place. They're so fucking toxic and corrupt and soulless, it's beyond reform. But no. Instead of doing an ounce of self-reflection, they want to lecture you and sell books to you about where it went wrong and how we can go forward. Get the fuck out of here. No one has done more to aid and abet fascism than the Democratic Party.